What's up, folks? Welcome to Nino's Corner.tv, my evening edition. I have Juanito. Juanito, can you hear me? El Juanito.
I can hear you, Nino. Nino. I can hear you. Oh my
So,
gosh.
man, I mean, everyone's been saying it's all quiet on the Western Front, right? It's quiet, but weird drone activity and weird conspiracy theories flying all over the internet right now. What's true? What's false? What's a conspiracy theory? What is not? Also, the Middle East is up in flames, basically. It's completely imbalanced. There's so much going on. I mean, just because it's quiet here, seemingly quiet, doesn't mean there's nothing going on. So I'm sure there's a lot happening behind the scenes, Juan. So could you please dial my audience in on what the hell is going on?
Well, I mean, quiet in what sense? I mean, you don't think the drones thing is getting people wound up? Do you
It's
think
it's
that's
it's it's
quiet?
definitely making people uncomfortable. Yeah, people don't like seeing these unidentified flying objects in their skies, although we know they're drones. But what are they here for? It's making people very uneasy.
Well, they should be uneasy. I mean, this is, something that is not minor. We have a Air Force, Space Force, all these military systems for a reason, FAA, etc. So when the sheriffs are sending up drones to see what's going on, you gotta, wonder who hasn't informed them
But their
and
flight,
why.
their air flight, they're flight compliant, right? I mean, they have flashing red and green lights. They're up there. It's and Majorca said, "Don't worry." Although we can't really take anything for what Majorca says, but I mean, they're compliant, right, for the airspace. I mean, so I mean that
Well,
makes me less nervous.
that's if they were private drones, they wouldn't be. You're not supposed to fly them at night in this way, and um, but it's a little bit more involved than that. Let's kind of dissemble it a little bit. Let's say Trump's coming into the presidency, um, and so he's being briefed on all sorts of things as the uh, you know future president, and they've pulled all of the restraints off on the security, so he's able to query certain things that he may need to know prior to coming into the presidency. As he gets closer, things that he is read in on become more intense. Uh, so, he's supposed to know everything that the sitting president knows so he can, day one, be go right into the work ahead that he has to do. And by the way, I was I didn't want to be somebody yelling fire in a crowded room. Did I inform you of kind of what was going on in the background well before the election?
Yes, yes,
In
but I didn't say
so,
anything. I
no,
didn't
you
say
were
anything.
very good and you were honorable, and I appreciate that. But I also, even in the broadcast that we did, I did put a couple of very precise coded pieces in there so that anybody could go back later and look and go, oh, well, that's exactly what the threat was, within certain specific words that I used. The only reason that I say that right now, Nino, is because that all went back to um, late summer. Uh, as we came into December, there was a couple other people put out little coded things that referenced coming drone wars, people very close to the president. And then Trump here just the other day said, well, shoot them down, you know. Uh,
But they're
now,
ours.
okay, hold on a second. Why? Let's think about this, Nino.
I know he has to act aloof.
Why would he make a statement like that if those were the good guys? That's what people would have to ask. And the only thing I would add,
Because
it
he
is
can't
kind
show his hand.
well, you can't. The one thing I would say to everybody listening within this audience right now, please don't go out and try to shoot them down. Um, First off, I remember the story of some poor guy on the beach down at Manhattan Beach in California, and he's just walking. I'm pretty sure it was Manhattan. He was just walking down the beach, minding his own business, beautiful day, and then he keels over on the beach. And so they get there, they're examining, they don't know what happened, you have a heart attack, whatever. They do the x-ray at the hospital, and here a small caliber bullet had entered his head straight down. Now, there was no helicopters, there's no buildings in the area that could do what had happened there. Somebody had fired a bullet in the air, and it just so happened to come down in the exact square foot that his head occupied at that exact moment, and killed him dead just walking along the beach. He'd been hit by a bullet somebody shot in the air, middle of the day. And those bullets, you could fire them off somewhere. They got to come down somewhere.
I gotta tell you, Juan, watching my parents get old, I almost think if you go out that way, it's almost a fucking blessing, man.
Well,
I mean, if you're just walking down the beach and you get hit with a straight bullet and you're just gone, I don't know, man. I mean, in some ways, I'm like, this 80 to 90 years old is a motherfucker.
Well, I've had more than one friend that got old tell me, don't get old.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I'm watching people come in and out.
It's not for the wimps. It's not for people that aren't.
I mean, if you don't know it's coming and you're walking on the beach and you're just la la la, beautiful sunset, and bing, you're gone. Fuck. I don't know. That's a blessing.
Well, I'd have to disagree with you, bro. But I'm just telling you. I mean, if your time's come and you got to go.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a pretty nice way.
Scriptures say that there's there's a moment beyond which no man shall pass. God knows the timing, but to me, that in the Old Testament, people gave up the ghost after they'd reached that particular time, and it's kind of interesting. They actually literally would call in the relatives and take a minute and tell the kids, give them a blessing like that, and then die shortly thereafter because they had reached some point and they had some sense of the timing. So, to me, I'm not, in fact, even when people go through these health issues at the very end of life, a lot of times, but it gives them time to say their goodbyes and to reconcile themselves, even, with the Almighty. So, I would have to say that, it may be hard, but it's also part of the process. And then I would hope that people don't, we need all the good guys to stick around.
Yeah, I know.
And by the way, let me just say one quick thing. I had a friend, a very close friend, and his wife, they'd been married for like 70 years. And his wife was visiting a relative. They literally got married when she was like 16 and he was like 18, and had celebrated their 70th anniversary. Goes to visit his sister out in Minneapolis or Michigan or something like that. And she's been there for, a couple of weeks, and she's ready to come back home, and he's anxious to see her. And as she's leaving, go to the airplane, has a heart attack, gets in the hospital. They didn't get oxygen to her very soon. All sorts of issues happened. And she, he flies out to where she's at. It's hard for him to fly. They go through all this drama, and she's on the incubator. They're keeping her alive till they can see her. Days go by. She's totally, they said she's brain dead. She'll be a vegetable the rest of her life. He can't let her go. She's there for like 2.5 weeks, and then his children
because he couldn't let her go.
He couldn't let her go. The children show up, and the doctors and the children finally convince him that they got to pull the plug. And so, he said it was just the most horrific thing he's ever gone through in his entire life. I mean, this is his childhood sweetheart.
Oh my Lord!
They played when they were still on bicycles with training wheels, knew each other all the time. He just couldn't bear to let her go. So he goes through all this pain. They unplug it. He had called me just before they were going to do it, and we prayed together, and they unplugged. She's still alive 2 days later.
Oh my Lord!
They said it'd be just a few minutes. And then it's hours. And then they have a doctor's meeting in the morning. The next day, she's still there. They talk about it. They have another doctor's meeting the next morning, and they decided for insurance reasons and everything else that if she's still fighting to survive, they had to plug her back in. So she had not, given a do not resuscitate, and he had not signed a do not resuscitate, and he refused to sign one. If she dies, she dies. But they want to try and keep her alive or whatever. So then they put her back on the incubator. And along the way, one of the things that happened, she had pulled the tube out of her throat that they had to, keep her, going during all that time, unconsciously a couple of times in that couple of weeks. So the family's interpretation of that was her trying to tell him to let her go. So they had everything in the world, it's time for mom to go. We got to let her go. They hook her back up, and she's still comatose. There's no brain activity. They can't see anything there. They've told everybody she's brain dead, and she could be this way for months. About a week goes by, and she wakes back up.
Oh my God.
And she has no memory, and she's coherent. She's physically completely, she's in her, I think at that time she was like 87, 88, something like that years old. And so she's, just from not, when you're in that kind of a state, your body loses muscle mass. It's
you go into atrophy.
Yes. And so literally,
is this an analogy for America?
Well, hold on a second. No, you're just mentioning about, situations with parents like that. They bring her all the way back. She was in the hospital there in Minneapolis or Michigan, I can't remember, for like 2 months total, beginning to end. They got her back up. She's got to pedal a little thing with her hands and do stuff with her feet, relearn how to walk with a walker. And she was pretty vibrant before that. She comes all the way back, Nino, to where she can drive again. She
That's
did not
unbelievable.
remember
That's a miracle.
A thing
That's
about
a miracle.
all of that time. She didn't know anything. She didn't remember a single thing while she was comatose till she woke up, and then they had to tell her what had happened, the whole schmear. She came all the way back and lasted, I think, 6 or 7 more years, and they were good years. They weren't crap. Her husband had some medical issues himself. He was actually the longest living at the time. Lou Gehrig's patient, I think, is my recollection of what he had. And so he was an anomaly himself, and he'd been an athlete. He'd been actually a triathlon athlete into his 60s. We think we know what the origins of his neurological damage was. He worked with high power electricity. I think.
Well, Juanito, I hate to cut you off, but I have to get to my dad's hospital soon. So
okay.
Let's try to knock this out.
Okay. Well, let me just. So anyway, people need to fight sometimes and be a little less know-it-all and stuff. And yeah, God's there. But anyway.
All right. So let's talk about real quick before I forget, the Gitmo comms that were on the Army versus Navy game. That's pretty crazy. You sent me the pictures. I couldn't believe it. Were those on like the big screen, or were those on commercials?
Or there were a number of places that they were at. And of course, let me say this so we can keep it, so you can put it on YouTube if you want. Certain letters and numbers were all present through a lot of the stuff around that. And of course, Sum of All Fears is the movie that, you pick a reference to, and that whole thing. Well, when you get into the drone thing, the whole point of the drones. Now, here's why I'm comfortable talking about this. I clued you in a long time ago. I actually clued your listeners in with a couple of code words that if things happen before the election, you'd know that I was very aware of what the problem was behind the scene. But I didn't want to be the one to cry wolf in a crowded theater. But Trump has now said, besides shoot him down, he followed it up with, because when you say that, that gets everybody's attention. So now everybody's queued up like, what?
Yeah,
Now they're
what's he
paying
mean? Shoot
attention.
him down.
Okay. Now he says, okay, well, I think what they're most likely looking for is a dirty bomb, nuclear radiation materials, or nuclear materials, etc. Okay, so let's think about this for a second, Nino. The the types of drones that are being used, the ones that have been made clear to everybody, these 8 foot wide, looks like they're carrying around something about the size of a coffin with them, a box. What has been what you would do if you were looking for a dirty bomb or a nuclear bomb, nuclear materials or a dirty bomb, would be like let's say that one of the nuclear warheads that we know were missing from when the Russians backed out of the Ukraine back in the 90s. If you're looking for one of those warheads that are missing, the numbers have run all the way from 50 to 100 and that supposedly are missing from that era. If you're looking for one of them, what you do is they might be completely encased somewhere. They're not really giving any signature that they're there that you can detect easily. So what you do is you hit an area, bombard it with neutrons of a certain type that then cause a little teeny itsy bitsy fart, if you will, of a reaction that then causes other materials to express in the area around it. And with your sniffers, they can detect that there's likely U-239, or plutonium or uranium, 239, 235, 238, somewhere in the area. And you have very sensitive detectors, and you could deduce from that that there's something nuclear in that area. And it could be things like if I went to a hospital and their X-ray machines use radiation to irradiate an area, and they get the image on a film. Well, I'd be able to tell you right where in the hospital that radioactive material is, where the X-ray machine is located. In the same way, I could use something and look at other things like shipping containers, a train moving, trucks with trailers on them, aircraft arriving, departing, and I could hit them, bombard them with this type of a blast, and then see if I see any of the emissions that are a resultant that would tell me, oh, there's radioactive material here of a particular type, and I got to look closer. So if you say Russia's pissed with us, remember Russia. We told Ukraine that they could use advanced weapons from the U.S. and attack inside of Russia and attack targets. Russia's not, this is a life and death situation for Russia. Russia very easily, right now, could collapse as catastrophically and unexpectedly as it did back before when the wall fell down. Russia's in an excruciatingly precarious position. Look, their closest ally is Syria, and Syria just fell. Their warm water ports. I mean,
what about the rumors of Putin and Trump being allies? Is that just asinine? Is that stupid?
Okay, so they're not allies. There may be some understanding there, but it's not like they're working in cahoots.
But they share a common enemy.
They, at some level, do share a common enemy. So now I go back to Trump's statement, shoot them down. What would be the purpose of doing what's being done? Remember, Nino, to all your listeners, I was very pointed about the fact that there were briefings going on prior to the election. And the pacing of those briefings went from every few days to every day to twice a day in the days up to the election. Now, why was that important? Because this threat has been looming for a bit and getting more and more advanced. And the question was, would somebody do something with nuclear waste or a nuclear bomb to try and disrupt the election process, the certification process, or the actual inauguration? And that has been looming out there. And part of the problem also is, look, these guys were headed for Damascus. It may be to the world that this attack and taking out Assad happened suddenly, but behind the scenes, that's been an edgy situation that other players are going, that thing could collapse in a heartbeat because their defenses are so thin to what's coming. And it did. It collapsed, and catastrophically. While Russia was preoccupied with Ukraine, they lost Syria, their closest ally. And now, in fact, today, the Israelis hit a site in Tartarus, which is northwestern Syria, near where Russia has some bases and stuff like that. But this was the location that Iran was using to move supplies into Lebanon through Syria. And so they hit that today. It caused a 3.0 earthquake, 3.5 earthquake. It was a big kaboom. And after the big explosion in Lebanon a few years back, they couldn't fuel these rockets that Iran was moving into Lebanon anymore in Lebanon. So they had to fuel them somewhere else.
So is this drone activity going to lead to something before the inauguration, do you think, or could it be after the inauguration? Does it matter what kind of...
Let me finish this quick thought, because that'll answer that question for you. Why would Trump say shoot them down? If they're trying to protect America from incoming nuclear weapons or material that could be used in a dirty bomb, why would Trump say that when he say, yeah, we need them to protect us? He's being briefed. He's being briefed.
Because he doesn't want to alarm the people or scare them.
No. I'll tell you why. Who would benefit with this scare that we're all being prepared for? Don't want Trump coming into office.
Right.
They want to prepare people to have a reaction. If you do something, it's like from the movie.
So wait a minute. Those are our drones, though, correct? Right?
They're U.S. drones. That's right.
Okay, but a black hat or white hat? They're white hat, correct?
Well, think about what are they trying to do? It's like Dr. Strangelove, the movie, which is a fantastic movie.
Yeah, but Juan, are they white hat or black hat?
Well, hold on a second. Think about this, Nino. I'm trying to give you a proper answer. In the movie Dr. Strangelove, the Russians have a doomsday weapon, but they hadn't announced it to the other side that they had a doomsday weapon yet. Supposedly, if you bomb Russia, then the doomsday weapon, which becomes automatic, destroys the whole world. But they didn't tell anybody there was a doomsday weapon. And they're like, well, it's no use having a doomsday weapon if you don't tell people that you got it. It's no deterrent. A doomsday weapon is supposed to be a deterrent to stop the other side from ever doing anything. But if you don't tell them that you have a doomsday weapon, it doesn't deter anybody. And they, well, we're going to announce it at the next main, conference or whatever, in a few months. We were, getting it ready. Well, what could be part of the equation here? When Trump says shoot him down, he draws attention. It's bombastic. It's intended to get everybody to look closer. But who's behind it? The people that want to prepare the American people and the world for a scare event so great that it justifies not being able to proceed with, let's say, a public inauguration, or let's say a congressional activity like certification or something like that. Are we being prepared for the possibility that something like this, so catastrophic potentially, there would be justification for everybody to have to, instantly, reflexively react a certain way. You're being prepared. It's mental preparation propaganda at some level.
Is it
And
kind of
so,
like what's happening with Taiwan right now, where they're flying the planes and the boats all around them, and people are just living in fear all day long? Is it just kind of psychological warfare, kind of?
well, it is a type of psychological warfare. I don't know if it's exactly the same as that, but what it's doing is it's preparing people that they would then have a logical um, reaction to the threat in such a way that they'd turn around and go, okay, well, this makes sense. And they wouldn't fight it. They wouldn't argue with it because the scare event is thorough enough that clearly, you have to react in this way to it. It's preparation. The ground is being prepared. So, and who would it be hurting? Well, if Trump says shoot them down, in part it's okay, well, they're trying to mess with us. We can't let them get away with that. And by the way, where did the intelligence system fail that would have allowed, say, when Russia went into Ukraine, first thing they did was secure a couple of the nuclear reactors that were there to make sure that there wasn't materials for dirty bombs escaping from those reactor areas. That was one of the first things they did, so that it couldn't be used against them or other places in the world. Is there material? Doesn't a dirty
I've been
bomb?
hearing there's a lot of radiation detected in California after those earthquakes and on the East Coast. I think Ghost Ezra posted something about that. Is there any truth to that? Is
Well,
there?
there was all sorts of questions going on. In fact, and by the way, another thing we should probably talk about is all the underground explosions happening all over the country that are very unusual, that are just shocking to people, and they're pretty large ones. So we'll talk about that a different day. But at the end of the day, the drones that are out there are being run by a special three-letter agency, Office of Global Assessments, wherever, and that's who's running them. There are stuff, but is it to actually protect the country, or is it part of a psychological operation by the current administration to create an environment where the public would accept that they have to react a certain way? And
Well, hold
by
on.
the
Could
way,
this
go ahead.
before I forget, a psychological operation to have us accept these drones for what? To surveillance, for martial
No, no,
law,
it's
or
it's
for?
no, no, no. It's to accept the gravity of the situation. What if you had to declare martial law? Remember, here's part of the rest of
Or
the
when he starts
equation.
doing the mass deportations, they're
No,
going to
no,
be
no, no,
using
no, no, no.
drones for.
Your path.
All right,
Get to get Trump in office first.
okay.
These drones are present during the current administration. What they're hoping for is Trump does anything that helps for him to have to take responsibility for something going wrong. Uh, that's why they want to include him in the negotiations on Syria at a certain level, because they want him to have to take the blame. Trump didn't get to share in the blame on Afghanistan. They didn't give him a chance. Now they want to give him a chance to share in the blame on any decisions that are made related to Syria and this current situation. So I'm asking you to back up, asking for your whole audience, back up, take a deep breath. Why is this administration being as visible in deploying this way as they are, knowing that the public's disturbed by it and everything else? Are they actually contributing with getting people amped up to what effect, to whose advantage? They want the public stress for a reason, and they're not talking it down. They're acting like, gosh, we don't know where it's coming from. Bullshit. You got drones parked all over DC right now, and they're monitoring. You got drones parked all
For
over New
people to be
Jersey.
anticipating the civil unrest.
No, it's not. It's not civil unrest. It's
Nukes, nuclear scare.
some type of a nuke scare, and then to they've anticipated already. They know how you're going to react. They know which way you're going to bounce, and they've set you up to bounce in a predictable way. Okay, that's what's being set up there. They're trying to get you ready and primed so that when they go bang, hit the drum, do whatever, everybody pivot in mass. You might have a few people that don't want to go along with the game or whatever, but in large measure, whatever's put out over the internet, whatever's put out in the newspaper and on the various talking head locations, everybody's in agreement. Well, we had to do this. We got to do this. In fact, they're demanding somebody do something before you can get to the event. And then when it happens, it's somewhat of a knee-jerk reaction. And it does not favor a quiet, peaceable move to a Trump presidency.
Okay, so this is going to be the event. This is leading to the event.
Well, it's leading to an event. It's not the only, there's multiple plays in the playbook. And I think it's like I mentioned to you before, Nino, people want a black and white answer. It's this or it's that. It's left or it's right. It's up or it's down. No, we are dealing with layers within this.
But one of the events is nuclear.
It is a key part of this thing.
And remember, another event is an EMP, correct? And right?
An EMP, yeah. And by the way, look, how would, you're really looking at drone wars. Why would you deploy these types of drones? Look, the detection systems looking for nuclear material or a nuclear device, you have to get fairly close and you do have to bombard it in a certain way. You can't do it. You can do it from satellites, but you have limited windows and things like that for interrogation. Interrogation when you send out a particular signal in particular wavelengths, then or with certain materials, you're asking within an area, hey, anybody agree with me? And all of a sudden you see a reaction and it tells you, oh, there's material here in this area because we see this response. And so that's why we call it interrogating. There's lots of different ways you can do it. When you say New Jersey, well, why all the concentration in New Jersey? Well, it's not concentrated primarily there. There's a couple other areas in the country, but because that's where people have really got their brains turned on. And by the way, you have so many people that live there. You got so many eyes watching now. Why are they concentrated there? Because somebody's figured out something is in that neighborhood for some reason. There could be other intel. There could have been something detected, but probably not because they've already attacked it. There's got some kind of intel that tells them that's where it's at. So with that in mind, what you're really trying to do is understand, this audience needs to understand, there are guys, it's not a foreign threat with the drones you're seeing.
But when you say our guys, are you saying our guys white hats or our government? Our government
in the more generic sense.
Okay, but it could be black hat. It's the black hats or the white hats. Let's just make it for my audience to understand.
Most likely, it is a black hat operation.
Okay.
In part to help thwart or slow down or confuse somehow what's going on, set the stage in some way for Trump's return. Either
so
to slow it down, cause a problem.
But they are black hat.
I would say that Trump saying shoot them down is an indication that ultimately it's not something that is favoring to his incoming administration. Wouldn't you? Am I wrong to say it that way? No. I think that's a natural way to interpret that statement. And it's clearly not Iran sending drones into the U.S. By airports and shipping areas and things like that. Okay. So within our own government, who's got that authority? The counter to that, however, is this: within a homeland security type of a viewpoint. the drones can get very close and personal to particular areas. They can investigate very quickly. The drone can go from this area of the shipping container site to that spot on the road where a truck just left, to that spot by the rail yard. And they don't have to cut through traffic or anything else. They're very fast, they're nimble, they're relatively small, about the size of a car. And they can be very precise in interrogating or looking in an area to see if they see any sign of something that could be something that we have to worry about. On the other side, if an enemy is going to attack us, one of the most threatening ways that could be done, what if you have a dirty bomb? A dirty bomb is just some nuclear material. So say somebody went in and got a bucket load of nuclear material from some reactor site. It could be as simple as they got a pipe out of a site that has all this residue inside the pipe, and it's dirty and spongy stuff that if you get too close to it, you can get material. You breathe it in, it's in your lungs, and you can't get it out. If you get it on your body, you scrub it off, and hopefully you get it all off and it doesn't continue to give a problem. But it's the particles that are problem get into your ingest it or breathe it in and you're toast. So what if you had a bucket of that material? If you strap it on a stick of dynamite, it blasts out over a certain radius. If you put, C4 in it or something else and you blast it out over, a large area, maybe you get a couple football fields. Or what they wanted to do down in California on Wilshire Boulevard, which was when they demolished the building, they were going to take dump trucks of material from demolishing the building, and some of it would have this nuclear waste in it and would pollute the whole highways on the way to where they were doing the dump sites and get large swaths. At the end of the day, it's still a very small amount of the country that gets damaged. It's a small area. It takes a lot of that material to really, do much if you get right down to it. And some of it has shorter or longer half-lives. So what would be the best way to deploy that material? It's not an explosion. And I'm not talking out of school. You don't think the bad guys and everybody else know this? You have drones that are delivering warheads. When we first trained the Ukrainians to go after Russia, they went in and used drones to carry warheads or missile tips that are normally sent, from a tank or an artillery shell to hit tanks. Instead of delivering it with a big boom and tank, they hook it on the bottom of a drone and they fly it right to the tank. And then the shell would go right at the most vulnerable point in the tank where the turret attaches to the tank itself, to areas where the tracks were located. And they would blow a tank up with exacting precision. When they first deployed that, in Ukraine a year ago, and it was drone pilots that were trained here in the U.S., Ukrainian drone pilots trained here to do this. They destroyed $200 million of Russian armor in 15 minutes. They killed a couple thousand guys in 15 minutes with drones. Now you come back to the U.S., Nino. We're very vulnerable. Those drones might be in the air for under 2 minutes. In some cases, 30 seconds. And you don't even know where to look or what to look for necessarily.
Juan, I gotta get going to my dad's hospital.
Give me 3 minutes. I'll finish this up. I want to finish this one thought.
Well, I have a headline to read to you too, so go ahead.
Okay. So when you want to deploy dirty materials, you would put it on a drone. Instead of being indiscriminate with like a bomb or something like that, you go right to the air inlet for a large office building or right into the lobby of a large office building. You could make a 20, 30, 50-story building unusable in seconds if you had that kind of material, and very hard to make usable again to clean out. And it doesn't just have to be nuclear material. The other problem is there's other materials, such as ricin, that it's very, very hard to detect and you get it into a building or a location like Washington, D.C., which I believe is what they want to do at some point, and make the city uninhabitable, you can't go back to it. So the drones can carry relatively small quantities into precise locations. And part of the briefing that have been going on is that there's not just a few thousand. There's a very large number of drones and operators which have been trained, ISIS and other groups that they could blame it on. But it also includes, look, I'm just going to say it. Well, I'm not going to say it because you're going to have this on YouTube. There's a particular country that we are at war with, and they have a lot of people here that have an intent because they've been exposed and discovered in what they tried to do, last month, and were stopped in it.
Okay.
So, so there's a lot more we could talk about, Nino. I mean, I'm just trying to help people understand this is more complex, but I did tell you. Did I tell you what was going on months and months ago?
Yeah, 100% you did, and you were right over the target.
And I didn't want to cry fire in a crowded theater. Correct. But, and I told you with enough precision so that there was an understanding, but I also, now that Trump has said what he said, I feel a little more licensed to speak a little more directly. He's trying to tune you up, pay attention. The threat is real. It's not unreal, and we have to not be easily used as a community to spread disinformation. It's aliens. It's they're on the moon and they're sending drones over, and it's part of come on, man. They're body snatching souls, from the hospital.
I mean, well, let me read this headline to you real quick. Russia is telling its citizens to leave and avoid travel to the West.
Yes.
Yeah. So Moscow, Russia said on Wednesday that the relations with Washington were so confrontational that Russian citizens should not visit, and if they are there, leave the United States. I mean, that's pretty crazy.
Well, because
and Canada and the EU countries
in
coming weeks,
and because look, the Syria situation.
But hold on, it's saying
Russia right on the brink. The Soviet Union collapsed so quickly. People in the West were shocked. Behind the scenes, there was no shock at all. It was
hold on, Juan. I'm gonna validate you real quick. Listen to this. Canada and some EU countries in coming weeks because they risk being hunted down by U.S. authorities. Russian and U.S. diplomats say the relationship is worse than at any time since the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis. What you've been saying all along, Juanito.
Yeah.
Boom. You're for the 100th time. Juan, I gotta get going. I gotta get to my dad.
Okay, Nino, and you know what? It's one of the toughest times in a person's life dealing with loved ones in this kind of an event. Let me just say a quick prayer for you. Father God, I ask that you give Nino wisdom and patience and strength to go through what he's going through with his parents, and that you would bring comfort to the situation for him in this and in these trying moments. And also pray for all the others in this audience that are dealing with similar issues, that you would give us grace and patience and resolve to go through this, to be the friends and the siblings, children, doing what is a mercy and a kindness for those that have raised us and spent the time with us. Just be with Nino as he goes through this. In Jesus' name, pray. Amen. Nino, I don't envy in this, but it's a gift from God to even get to be able to pay back in some way for those that have made so many sacrifices for you to be here, and all the things that they had to go through with you, and it's kind of a reversal. Now you get the chance to minister in that way. It's not easy, but it's also it's a gift. Not everybody gets that chance to make sure that somebody knows just how important they were, you're getting a chance to return some gifts. Take deep breaths. Okay.
Thank you, Juanito.
All right, bro.